All right, I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you watched some football over weekend. Some good games on tonight, the national title, so check it out. All right, so moving on here today, we're going to talk a little bit about perception. I want to review with you a bell ringer for today, just kind of going over what we went over Thursday. Since Friday was the test, I will have those grades in for you here soon. Don't you worry about it. They'll be in ASAP. Don't worry. All right, so bell ringer. Describe the terms gate control theory, olfaction, and gustation. So give you a few seconds, pause the video, work on it, and I'm going to sit this down and throw it away. And when I come back, I'll go. All righty, here we go. So I want to start off with olfaction first. So olfaction is smell, okay? There's an olfactory bulb. That's pretty much how they label it, they call it. Right in the limbic system, close to sensory motor cortex in the cerebral cortex. So limbic system we know is the midbrain, right? And that is very much related to the sensory motor cortex. And we know smell, right, as our way of sensing, okay, different types of aromas, foods, you name it. And it's very much related to emotion, memory, okay? Whenever we walk into a store or whenever we walk into a restaurant, okay, we know exactly what we're smelling, that distinctive smell of, what is being made in that restaurant that we love, okay, that we know that we had a good experience with it, that right when we walk into the restaurant, you already kind of have your mind made up of what you already want. All right, whether it's like Mexican food, whether it's a burger, a steak, okay, chicken, whatever it is, whatever it might be, whatever you actually like and smell and created a good experience with. And that's what olfaction is. Again, it's related heavily with the limbic system, sensory motor cortex, okay, obviously. All right, gustation, taste. All right, same thing. Okay, taste is very much associated with the limbic system, sensory motor cortex, obviously, and our taste buds obviously are different depending where you're located at the tongue. And in many cases, this could hinder different types of tastes if we burn our mouth, if we have smoke, obviously smoke in our mouth. I guess with COVID-19 now, can't smell or taste anything, which obviously has some sort of relationship with our ability to perceive that taste, that smell. Okay, so taste, gustation, and sweet, sour, salty, you name it, all affected in different locations on our tongue, which we went over on Thursday. And that's again located and perceive with our limbic system, where we can understand and create past and present examples to it, and represent that memory and experience with something that we already obviously experienced before, and our sensory motor cortex with how we perceive that sort of sensation. All right, last thing, gate control theory. So gate control theory is a way of us people controlling of the pain receptors in a way, right? If we injure ourselves somehow, if we somehow maybe, I don't know, a good example, maybe getting a paper cut on your hand, on your finger, and then you're going to go play a game later. It's to the point where we forget about that sensation, that throbbing on our finger, because we're experiencing in a game where we're focused on different aspects of that game, and our mind shifts away of that sensation for a bit of time for us to focus on a certain task. And I'll show you a video. I'll attach it today. It's not the one I wanted to show on Thursday because I got to skip through a few parts because it's a little, I just don't want to share it on Google Classroom. But the other video is pretty funny. It's with Major Payne and how he he's running through I think it's Vietnam. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to check again. But he's running through the forest, and one of his men went down, and he's like, "Oh, my legs, I can't feel it." So he goes, "You want me to take your mind off that leg?" He's like, "Oh yeah, please, anything you can do." So he grabs his hand and breaks his finger, and then the man's screaming about his finger. "My finger is broken," and he goes, "Oh, told you, take your mind off it." So he's creating a new sensation for that person to do, I guess, worry about and think and focus their attention on. So that's what gate control theory is, and how we can focus on different sensations and how we perceive that sort of feeling, and in this case, pain. All right, moving on here today. I wanted to go over an activity with you. I always enjoyed it. I always liked it, and I'll attach it for you today. And you can kind of go through it a little bit later if you don't see it right away as I'm going through it. So perception, we're getting to perception and how we perceive the outside world. Again, we don't actually, there's no colors actually associated with different elements and different items and things that we see. It's how light bounces off it, how light reflects that off of that object for us to perceive it. And in many cases, people might perceive different things, objects differently. Okay, depending on the rods and cones, right, in their eyes, the photoreceptors, how that neural impulse, that message is being sent to their brain to be processed. Okay, so in many cases, people who are colorblind, they might perceive the outside world a little bit differently. Smell and taste. Not everybody has the same taste. Not everybody has the same smell. Okay, in many cases, people might have a different diet depending on how they perceive certain information or stimulus, especially with what they're eating or smelling, tasting, you name it. Right? It's all different. For the most part, though, I mean, we're all kind of understanding what types of colors there are. Obviously, if it's different with color blindness. Hearing, okay, people that have impaired hearing, they don't perceive the same sounds as we do. Okay, and a good example too would be music, right? How we might have different tastes in music and how we perceive that, and maybe lyrics and stuff, how we understand that, and kind of relate that to our everyday life. And people that have maybe impaired hearing with a cochlear implant, okay, hearing for the first time ever, okay, they don't perceive that the same as we do. Right? There's many different examples of how perception is different amongst everybody. All right, so this is a cool object here. I like going over this perception test, I guess you could call it, with you in class, but it is what it is. Okay, so which image is smaller, A, B, or C? They're the same size. So when you're looking at the image, it almost seems that A is smaller than B. Right? A lot of it's just because what we're focusing on here, right? So we see this image here, we see the angles, right, of obviously of A. And we know that kind of fits in here, right? That's way smaller than what B it has to be. Okay, but when we look at the image a little bit more, we understand if motion was being used here and the A would slide over B, then that'd have to be the same size. So C is the actually correct answer. As you can see, they are the same size. And that's a way our mind plays tricks on us because when we're focusing on a certain object, it perceives that A is smaller than B just the way it's shaped here, and the image that it creates. Okay, obviously the boundaries of A when we look at A compared to B when they're right next to each other, it just looks and appears that A is smaller, but in all reality, they're the same size. All right, so this is the same image in different orientations. Which image is upright? Click when you know what it is. All right, so I'll let you guys focus on it for a second. I don't want to give it up right away. This one's a little bit harder. Every year I have students tell me that, what they see in the images. And I just kind of shake my head. It's like, I think you're just looking at the wrong image. Or when I do show them the image, I don't see it at all. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. So with the image, D is the upright image. And it is a cow. Okay. In D, we see a cow. Here's the nose, right? Okay. Here's kind of the snout of the cow going up. Here's the ear, right? And spot on it on its face. Obviously, here's its eye, head. Here's the other ear. Okay. And here's the body. Obviously, there's the body of the cow, and here's a big spot on the cow. There's another spot. So that is a cow. All right, that is a cow. Again, you might see a different image. Again, it's how our perception and what we visualize, what we see is different with everybody. And every year I hear something new from a student that, why it's B, and they see something obviously in that picture that I don't obviously see. But it's supposed to be D, and that is a cow. Okay, as you can see here. Here's the head. Okay, here's the body. All right, and audio, I'm not going to play through that. But perception, that's what we're talking about now and today. And we're going to talk about different illusions and things like that and how culture can shape our perception a little bit different as well. All right, here we go. Actually, I can exit out of that. I don't need it anymore. All right, so perception. We just got done with visualization, anatomy of the eye, anatomy of the ear, and hearing, okay, which I'll have those grades in here soon. But perception. Perception is a mental process that elaborates and assigns meaning to the incoming sensory patterns. So again, everybody perceives things differently. It's how our neural messaging, neural impulse, okay, sends that information of what we're sensing, and our mind makes sense of it for us. It perceives that information for us to visualize something, for us to hear, taste, touch, you name it. And I have a lot of different activities for you to do, but since we're not here, it's a little hard to do. I had it's a taste test where I bring soda in, and I ask students if they can tell the difference between Pepsi, RC Cola, Coca-Cola, Sam's Cola, different things like that, and see if they could perceive it differently. So I go through the test, and obviously the student would be blindfolded tasting it and see if they can perceive it. And I'd always just use Coke and see if they could tell. And every year I have some students saying, yeah, this is RC Cola, this is Pepsi, I can tell the difference. Well, actually, it's Coke. It's all Coke. You're just thinking, since you're tasting different things, and I'm telling you that you're tasting a cup 2 or cup 3, cup 4. You think you're tasting a different soda when in all reality it's just Coca-Cola. So I like to play that trick, I guess you could say. It's fun to do. And then jelly beans. I usually bring jelly beans in. It's almost like Bean Boozle, right? I like to play that game and see if anybody can guess and taste the different jelly beans, and if they can perceive the actual jelly bean. And that's fun to do. Obviously, I don't use the Bean Boozle because I don't want anybody tasting what they believe and perceive as puke or skunk. I don't know what the heck kind of flavors there are, but there are a lot of weird ones. All right, so perception brings meaning to sensation. It produces an interpretation of the world, but it isn't a perfect representation. All right, so again, everybody's perception is different, right? All right, so we perceive the world not exactly as it is, but as it's useful for us to perceive it. So again, our brain doesn't interact with the outside world. Our senses, our way of perceiving that information is how we actually interact with the outside world, with objects, with different types of tools, materials, and we make sense of it the way we perceive it. All right, so describe this picture. Right, when we first look at it, okay, if we do a bottom to top processing, okay, top to bottom processing, which we'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow, we can understand and visualize what we're seeing here. Actually, I'll just go over it today. It's fine. So if we do bottom up processing, okay, what we see is a man on horseback, and we see 2 horses walking through the forest, all right, having a grand old time, enjoying it. All right, but when you visualize it and do top to bottom processing, you read the title, The Forest Has Eyes. So if the forest has eyes, you're looking probably for eyes or faces. And when we see it, we can see faces all around throughout the image. Okay, we can see faces all throughout this image, and it really allows us to perceive something a little bit different once we're given a clue or a hint. And we all can agree to that if we're playing some sort of puzzle game or any type of game that makes us think and perceive to maybe figure out a certain hint or a riddle, right? All right, so again, that's kind of what I went over already. And bottom-up processing analyzes and emphasizes the characteristics of stimuli rather than our concept and expectations. So for bottom-up processing, we don't see the title, unless the title's at the bottom. But we don't see the title. We're actually visualizing as what we aren't already given a hint or a clue towards it, right? With that picture especially, before I send the title up, before I show the title, it's kind of hard to actually see the faces because you're not inclined to look for eyes or look for a face. When you first look at it, you see the horse, the 2 horses, the man riding it, through the forest. You don't really process, you don't perceive it right away because you're not looking for it. And then top-down perception analyzes and emphasizes the perceiver's expectations, right? So once I gave that title, you knew exactly where to look, all right? You know exactly what to look for, and those are the faces. Concept memories and other cognitive factors rather than individual characteristics. So bottom-up processing is just our initial perception. We're not looking for exactly what's hinted at or what's triggered in that message or that photograph. But with bottom, top to down perception, we're already given that hint. We're given that cue to look for it. I always like those pictures on Facebook. It's like, oh, did you find the leopard in the image? If you didn't, you'd be already dead, or something like that. Or the book's I Spy. Okay, with I Spy, you're looking around at the image first, trying to look for the items, and then when you look, at the bottom, the directions, right? It obviously explains to you what you're looking for, what you're trying to find, and I think it's still hard. So as it is. All right. Okay, that's it for today. Again, I'll have those tests graded. Don't worry about it. And Monday, I heard, is our last day. So we're going to have our final exam on that. It's just going to be the Chapter 4 exam. So don't worry about it too much. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one. We'll see you around.